If God created us, then who created God? Best answer. In a time long past, God existed in a world without form, enveloped in darkness. He hovered over the primordial waters, and in a profound moment, God uttered the words that resound through eternity. "Let there be light." Instantly, light emerged, and God saw that it was good. He divided light from darkness, showcasing his divine power. Yet, a crucial theological question endures. Where did God originate? When heaven and earth were mere possibilities, when darkness ruled over a formless void, God was already present. He dwelled alone in his divine majesty, calling forth light from darkness, bringing order to chaos, and shaping a cosmos from confusion. But the incessant question remained. That exposes the limits of our understanding when confronting the ultimate source of existence. The very act of posing this question often stems from applying our experience of a finite created universe to the concept of a being declared as eternal and The passage we explored argues that framing God within the familiar constraints of time and causality is inherently flawed. If we accept the premise that God is the uncaused cause, the eternal and self-existent source of all things, then the question of his creator becomes moot. It's akin to asking, what is north of the North Pole? The question itself breaks down because it attempts to apply a spatial framework to a concept that defines the very limits of space. Some claim that God created the earth 6,000 years ago in just 6 days. However, to maintain philosophical consistency and honesty, the question arises, where did God originate? If it is believed that God created the universe, logic compels us to ask who created God, and so begins an unending cycle of inquiries. Who created God, and who created the God, who created the God? This is where faith intersects with philosophical reasoning. Accepting the idea of an uncreated God requires a leap beyond our empirically based understanding of the world. It demands acknowledging a realm beyond our current capacity to fully comprehend, a realm where the very notions of beginning and end might hold no meaning. Does this mean we are forever barred from seeking deeper understanding? Our human quest for knowledge can still explore the nature of this uncreated God as revealed through faith traditions, philosophical inquiry, and perhaps even scientific exploration into the origins of the universe. While the question of who created God might not have a satisfying answer within our current frame of reference, it can serve as a springboard for contemplating the profound mystery of existence itself. The pursuit of truth stretches into infinity, testing our intellects and urging us to explore the mysteries of the unknown. Let's delve further into the question, who created God? Before we proceed, please like this video and comment hallelujah below. You did not stumble upon this video by chance. Subscribe as a sign of receiving this message from God. God bless you. The human mind, ever curious, perpetually seeks answers to life's fundamental mysteries. Where did we come from? Why is there something rather than nothing? Across cultures and throughout history, diverse creation myths have attempted to explain the origin of the universe and humanity's place within it. Yet, the concept of creatio ex nihilo, creation out of nothing, stands distinct, offering a perspective that profoundly shapes our understanding of God, existence, and the very fabric of reality. Central to Judeo-Christian theology, creatio ex nihilo asserts that God created the universe and all it contains from a state of absolute nothingness. This wasn't a reshaping of pre-existing materials or a drawing forth from some primordial chaos, as depicted in other. Rather, it posits a radical act of divine will where existence itself springs forth from the infinite potential within God. As the Steen Drew's Encyclopedia of Theology emphasizes, God is the sole antecedent condition for everything apart from God is utterly dependent on Him for its being. This doctrine carries profound implications, fundamentally shaping the relationship between creator and creation, God's unique and supreme power. Unlike a human artist who requires materials to work with, he is not limited by pre-existing conditions, nor does he require external forces or entities to enact his creative will. This act of creation showcases his boundless power and establishes him as uniquely distinct from everything else in existence. He is the uncreated creator, the ultimate source of all being. The dependency of creation. If everything originated from God's creative act, then all things owe their existence entirely to Him. This concept challenges any notion of inherent autonomy or self-sufficiency within the created order. From the grandest galaxy to the smallest subatomic particle, all find their origin and sustenance in God's sustaining power. Addressing the who created God question, one of the most common arguments against theism is the seemingly logical question: if God created the universe, then who created the universe? Then who created God? Creatio ex nihilo offers a direct: if God is truly the uncreated source of all existence outside of Himself, the question becomes misplaced. It attempts to apply the very concept of creation, something that occurs within the universe and time. As theologian Keith Ward puts it, nothing could have brought into existence a reality that completely transcends space and time, that is self-existent, a universe filled with purpose. The doctrine further suggests a purposeful creation. God doesn't simply create from necessity or out of pre-existing matter. He creates according to His own will and design. This imbues the universe and, by extension, human life with inherent meaning and purpose. We are not simply cosmic accidents, but the result of a deliberate creative act called into being by a loving and intentional God. Despite its theological significance, creatio ex nihilo is not without its critics. Some argue that the concept is logically incoherent, as it seems to describe an impossible transition from absolute nothingness to somethingness. Others, particularly those who adhere to materialist philosophies, reject the idea of a creator altogether, seeking explanations for the universe's origins in natural processes. Beyond scientific explanation, it's essential to recognize that creatio ex nihilo is primarily a theological, not a scientific doctrine. It attempts to address ultimate origins, a realm that lies beyond the current scope of scientific inquiry. While science can provide compelling explanations for the development of the universe from the Big Bang onward, it cannot ultimately answer the question of why there is something rather than nothing. This is where faith and philosophical reflection play a vital role. The concept of creatio ex nihilo may remain a mystery that our finite minds struggle to fully grasp. Yet, this very mystery points towards the transcendent nature of God and the profound depth of His creative power. It challenges us to move beyond purely materialistic interpretations of reality and consider the possibility of a source, a beginning that defies our typical understanding of cause and effect. In embracing creatio ex nihilo, we are invited to contemplate a universe brought forth from the boundless potential of a loving creator, a universe brimming with meaning, purpose, and the awe-inspiring presence of the divine. When we pose this question, we immediately confront the notion of a created God, which is fascinating. This very question highlights an essential point. The belief in God as the Creator is central to our understanding. However, the intrigue of this question lies in its prompting us to consider a more plausible explanation: the impossibility of something emerging from nothing. If we accept that it is impossible to create something from absolute nothingness, we arrive at a compelling conclusion. There must be something eternal, always in existence, Otherwise, we would be trapped in endless emptiness. Consequently, we are all, in some way, compelled to believe that something has always existed. This is the only logical conclusion, for if we accept that nothing can arise from nothing, then both you and I, who are here discussing, are something, and that something must. The concept of something eternal, ever present, is the key to unraveling the mystery of creation. Here's the question. Everything we know about the physical world makes us doubt that something can exist eternally. Our understanding of the universe has drastically changed. This theory suggests that our present universe is merely a temporary manifestation, a single iteration in an endless series. Consider the evidence. The universe is in constant flux. Energy is slowly being consumed. The well-established second law of thermodynamics teaches us that energy diminishes over time. Stars are depleting their energy, and the expansion of the universe seems to be speeding up, boundaries beyond our comprehension. All of this leads us to conclude that the physical world, as we know it, cannot be something that has existed eternally. Now, the crucial question is, whatever has existed eternally must be completely different from what we observe today. The original cause, the source of everything, must be something beyond our current understanding. Therefore, we are challenged to explore the true nature of this mystery that surpasses our physical world. I acknowledge that the idea of something existing eternally may seem difficult to grasp, but I want to offer a different perspective. Consider that everything we perceive as contingent reality, meaning things that could be otherwise, are merely fleeting even seemingly solid objects. They are interconnected, like dominoes in a chain of dependent contingencies. At some point, we must assume that there is something fundamental, something entirely different from what we are attempting to explain. However, when it comes to God, the central claim of Christian, Jewish, and Islamic traditions is that God is eternal. Therefore, the question of God's origin does not apply to him by definition. The only way to argue against this is to assume that everything falls into the category of the created, but that simply brings us back to the starting point. The ancient Greeks pondered this question, which is why the Gospel of John opens with the words, "In the beginning was the Word." This statement invites us to consider that all things have their origin in something eternal and transcendental, something beyond our understanding, something that existed before everything else. The ancient Greeks were intrigued by the distinction between two categories, what is created and what already exists. Ultimately, this inquiry centers on whether there is something or someone that has always existed without coming into being. Christians assert that this eternal being is God, and this belief is fundamental to their faith. While some may consider the question, who created God, to be valid, I contend that it is not. Now, for those who believe that the universe is the origin of everything, I have a question. Who created the creator of the universe? This question often confounds people, and I have personally posed it to many scientists. The human heart yearns for meaning, purpose, and a connection to something greater than itself. This yearning often leads us to contemplate the divine, the concept of a God who transcends our limited experience and holds dominion over the vastness of existence. Yet, the very nature of God, his essence and attributes, remains a profound mystery, a concept that stretches the limits of human comprehension. As we embark on this exploration, we must acknowledge that any attempt to define God fully is like trying to capture. Nevertheless, through scriptural revelation, philosophical reasoning, and the insights of theologians throughout history, we can glean glimpses into the awe-inspiring nature of the divine. Central to understanding God is the affirmation of his eternality. As declared in Psalm 92, before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. He is not bound by the linear flow of time that governs our existence. He has no beginning, no end, but dwells in an eternal now. The Westminster Confession of Faith, a cornerstone of Reformed theology, describes God as infinite, eternal, and unchangeable. This attribute of immutability emphasizes his unwavering constancy. Unlike us, he is not subject to growth, decay, or alteration. His nature is perfect and complete, his character steadfast and true. This eternal and unchanging nature addresses a fundamental question often raised. If God created the universe, who created God? If God exists outside the realm of created things, bound by neither time nor space, then the very concept of needing a creator, he is the ultimate source, the uncaused cause, the ground of all being. While acknowledging the limitations of our finite minds to fully grasp the infinite, this does not imply that God is entirely unknowable. He has chosen to reveal himself to humanity through both general revelation, the wonders of creation that testify to his power and majesty, and special revelation, the scriptures and the person of Jesus Christ, who declared, "Whoever hath." It's through these revelations that we encounter attributes of God, such as omnipotence. His power knows no bounds. He spoke the universe into existence, effortlessly upholding its intricate laws and sustaining all things by the word of his power. Omniscience. He possesses perfect and complete knowledge. Nothing is hidden from his sight. He knows the end from the beginning, every thought and intent of every heart. Omnipresence. He is not confined to a specific location, but is present everywhere simultaneously. As the psalmist declares, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I go from your presence?" Psalm 139:7. Holiness. God is utterly set apart, morally perfect and pure. This attribute is not merely an absence of evil, but a positive, radiant quality that defines his very being. Love. The scriptures declare that God is love. 1 John 4:8. This love is not merely a sentiment, but an active, self-giving force that motivates all he does. It's evident in his creation, his patient sustenance of the world, and ultimately in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ for the redemption of humanity. Comprehending God's nature involves wrestling with apparent paradoxes. How can he be both infinite and personally present in our lives? How can he be both just and merciful, sovereign over all, yet respectful of our free will? These are not contradictions to be resolved, but mysteries to be embraced, for they point to a reality that transcends our limited understanding. Seeking to understand the nature of God is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. It's a pursuit fueled by humility, awe, and a recognition of our own finiteness in the face of the infinite. The more we learn of him, the more we discover the depths of our own ignorance and the vastness of his being. The question of who created God is actually less complicated than it might initially appear. When we describe God as an eternal and timeless being, the answer becomes evident. As Keith Ward mentions in his book, God, Chance, and Necessity, if someone were to ask what caused God, the answer would be simple. Nothing could have brought into existence a reality that completely transcends space and time, that is self-existent. Grasping this concept means recognizing that God exists beyond the confines of beginning and end. Anything that comes into existence requires a cause. It cannot emerge from nothing. However, something eternal and timeless does not adhere to this premise and therefore requires no cause. Even atheists like Daniel Dennett concede that if eternal truths exist, such as numbers or mathematical objects, they do not require a cause. The notion of God is precisely that of an eternal and self-sustaining entity, a primary necessity. Thus, the explanation is straightforward. God has no cause because he is self-sufficient. Our understanding of God is that he is the uncreated creator of the universe, surpassing all temporal and spatial limitation. The question of who created the uncreated creator is akin to asking about the sound of silence or what emptiness does. My point is that there is a definition of silence. My point is that prevents such a question from being valid. Similarly, when we inquire about the origin of the uncreated creator of the universe, we are engaging in reasoning that does not apply to him. This leads to an essential observation. Christians base their faith on a God who was never created, whereas atheists often have different explanations. As a former atheist, I also believed in an uncreated creator, though my interpretation differed. I might have thought of a multiverse generator or some quantum environment from which universes spontaneously emerge. Regardless of the specifics, the core idea was that the universe was not created. Therefore, ultimately, everyone holds a belief in an uncreated creator. What I encourage you to do is continue the narrative from the universe's inception to the effect of God's spiritual essence on the material world. Given that we all share this belief in an uncreated creator, perhaps the vital question is how this creator interacts with our continuum of time, space, and matter, referred to as the continuum. Here's the critical point. Time, space, and matter must have all come into existence simultaneously. If space existed without time, where would you place it? And if matter existed in space without time, when would you place it? It is impossible to separate time, space, and matter. The Bible succinctly addresses this issue in just 10 words. In the beginning, God created the heaven space, and the earthom space, and the earthom matter. Consequently, time and space were created alongside matter. These three components form a crucial trinity. Time includes the past, present, and future. Space consists of length, width, and height. And matter exists in gas, liquid, and solid state. This trinity of the Trinity was created instantaneously, and the God who brought them into existence must be beyond them, transcending all temporal constraints. If God were bound by time, he would not truly be God, for he would be limited by his own creation. The designer of a computer is not confined within it, controlling the numbers on the screen. Likewise, the God who made this universe is not constrained by it. He exists beyond, above, and throughout the universe, unaffected by it. Now, when addressing the claim that a spiritual force cannot influence a material body, it prompts intriguing questions. How do we account for emotions? Love, hate, envy, jealousy. How can we trust our reasoning processes and our perceptions of what is right? The human intellect, driven by an insatiable curiosity, constantly seeks to unravel the enigma of existence itself. This pursuit inevitably leads us to ponder the ultimate reality, the grounding principle of all that is, the concept of God. As we navigate the labyrinthine corridors of philosophical inquiry, the nature of God, his essence, attributes, and relationship to the cosmos emerges as a topic of profound significance, challenging our assumptions and pushing the boundaries of human comprehension. One of the most persistent challenges to theistic belief stems from the question, if God created the universe, then who created God? This seemingly logical query, however, exposes a fundamental flaw in attempting to apply finite categories of understanding. Positing a creator for God immediately sets in motion an infinite regress, a never-ending chain of creators requiring creators, as aptly pointed out by Focus on the Family. This line of reasoning leads to a logical absurdity. If each creator must be greater than the one they brought forth, then the very concept of a supreme being, an ultimate source, becomes impossible. we are left with an endless hierarchy of beings, each contingent upon the previous one. To escape this philosophical quagmire, we must confront the foundational principles of causation itself. The principle of ex nihilo, nihil fit, nothing comes from nothing, is central to this exploration. If we accept that the universe, in all its vastness and complexity, exists, then something must have always existed. This something cannot be merely another entity within the universe, for it would then be subject to the same limitations of contingency, requiring This eternal, uncreated something is what theology defines as God. He stands as the necessary first cause, the unmoved mover, existing outside the constraints of time, space, and causality that govern the created order. He is not a being among beings, but being itself, the ground of all existence, the wellspring from which all else flows. Philosophically, this understanding of God aligns with the concepts of transcendence and immanence. God's transcendence signifies his utter otherness, his existence beyond the limits of our finite understanding and the constraints of the physical. He is not reducible to any concept, image, or category that we can conjure in our minds. Yet, paradoxically, this transcendent God also chooses to be immanent, present, and active within his creation. This immanence is experienced through his sustaining power, his revelation in Scripture and the natural world, and most profoundly through the incarnation, God taking on human flesh in the person of Jesus Christ. This seemingly contradictory nature, both wholly other and intimately present, highlights the profound mystery at the heart of the divine. It challenges us to expand our understanding of being itself, to recognize that reality encompasses realms far surpassing our current capacity. Several prominent philosophers, like Avicenna and Maimonides, have proposed arguments for God's existence based on the concept of a necessary being. They argue that everything we observe in the universe is contingent, meaning it could have been otherwise. The universe itself, bound by time and change, is not inherently necessary. Therefore, there must exist a being whose existence is not contingent, a being that cannot not exist, a necessary being. This being is, by definition, self-sufficient, not relying on anything outside itself for existence. This necessary being is identified with God, the ultimate source of all contingent reality. While philosophy offers valuable tools for contemplating the divine, it's crucial to acknowledge its inherent limitations. Human reason, bound by our finite perspectives, can only take us so far on this journey. Ultimately, embracing the reality of God necessitates a step beyond pure logic, a leap of faith. This faith, however, is not a blind acceptance of dogma, but a reasoned trust based on the cumulative weight of philosophical arguments. The pursuit of understanding God's nature is an ongoing process, an adventure of the mind and spirit that compels us to wrestle with paradox, embrace mystery, and expand our comprehension of reality itself. Though we may never fully grasp the infinite depths of the divine, the very act of seeking brings us closer to the one who is the source of all truth, beauty, and goodness. It is in this pursuit that we discover not only the grandeur of God, but also the depth and meaning inherent in our own existence. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, 26, 27, it describes how God created the world out of nothing. Standing on nothing, he wielded the hammer of his own will and struck the anvil of his omnipotence, sending sparks flying. He caught these sparks on the tips of his fingers and scattered them into the cosmos, filling the heavens with stars. There was no opposition, no dissent. Everything was in perfect harmony. Then God declared, "This is good." God exalted Christ with a name above all names, so that at the mention of Jesus, every knee should bow, whether in heaven, on earth, or beneath the earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God, the Father. I want to highlight a crucial point. The questions regarding the origin of God and the essence of creation are deeply profound and have captivated human thought across ages. Regardless of personal beliefs, it is evident that our capacity to grasp the truth about God and the universe, the concept of an uncreated creator, an entity beyond time, space, and matter, challenges our comprehension while also emphasizing the magnificence of the unknown. Ultimately, the quest for truth is a deeply personal and spiritual endeavor, and each person can find meaning and purpose in their own way. We explore viewpoints that encourage reflection, broaden understanding, and acknowledge divine transcendence. No matter where you are on your spiritual path, I hope these reflections have fostered an appreciation for the intricacy and wonder of the universe and the enigma of divinity. Thank you for joining in, and may your journey be filled with insightful and enriching discoveries.